Okay, so hello everyone. So today we are going to see in AWS Serverless, and we will talk about one of the very popular service in AWS world, which is called S3. Yes, S3 buckets. How AWS Serverless template it can be used to spin up a S3 service, and then you're able to write to this S3 bucket, read from the S3 bucket, and all that. So let me quickly go to my CLI. So those who want to know how to set up a CLI onto the local machine, you can refer my previous videos. I have given very detailed description about how we are going to set it up, like all the AWS stuff in the like CLI, AWS serverless skeleton and all that. So you will be able to understand if you refer my previous videos. This videos I will basically focus on spinning up an S3 bucket from my AWS serverless CLI and with some Node.js code. Okay, so while we start, while I will be writing some code, it will be important for us to understand like why we are writing the code. So that is the reason why will try to explain every single piece of line that I will write, reason behind that, and then what role it will play onto the AWS infrastructure when we deploy that service. So this is a very common skeleton, handler.js. There we will write our own Lambda function, and that Lambda function we will be writing in, which will be using SDK S3 bucket, and then we'll push something to the S3 bucket. Similarly, serverless.yaml, this is the backbone of any AWS serverless application. So yeah, so before we write Lambda, it is important for us to write serverless YAML. So as we know that serverless YAML is very common uh, part which we have to write. So let me straight away write service, and let's say example of this is S3 example serverless. All right, and then we can give framework version, and there we can write, let's say, 1. Okay, and then provider. So provider is something where we give uh, name. So name would be AWS, and then runtime. Runtime I can say Node.js 18.x, and then I can say region. Region I can give US East 1, and then I can say envi RONMENT environment. And in environment we can give, because we would be using S3, so let's give some name, S3 bucket name. And over here I'll be using uh, self service. I'll be explaining in a bit like what I'm doing in, but let me write it first. These are the ways how you can refer your uh, AWS infra related things. Okay, so this will be my bucket, and then we also have to give some IAM role STATMENT statements, and there we have to so we have to write uh, like what we have to do. We have to allow, and in allow we have to allow what actions we have to allow. So we have to allow action. Uh, so we have to allow actions like S3 put object. Okay, and then S3 get object. So these are the two role which I would like to give, and the resource which I would like to tag this role is resourcp. Resource is Okay, so resource where I would like to give this is, okay, ARN AWS S3 dollar self. Once you will be, very, you write 2 3 lambda functions, and then you can just reuse most of the things. So I'll be writing in this video everything in, from the scratch, and then maybe my future videos I'll not be writing it, but instead reusing most of the things which I will write here, so that we save a lot of time. Stage, and then don't worry, because I'll be explaining you every single detail here what I am writing in. So for example, let me focus on this provider part, which is very important to understand. So service name, okay, this particular service name over here, it defines the serverless configuration for deploying a serverless application. So once you use this SLS deploy command, this use this template, right? SLS deploy use this template as serverless.yaml, and then convert into the cloud formation template. So this is where the service names comes in picture. So name of the service, okay, it is used to name the AWS resources uniquely. So this is the unique name that would be given. Framework version is specified the version of the serverless framework being used. So you can write, whichever version. So let's say 3 I can write here. um, and then provider, it is very important section of the serverless YAML. It configures the cloud provider AWS and runtime environment. Whenever your lambda function, whichever thing you're writing in or you're about to create, when it will run, so you have to create the runtime environment. So for example, name is the AWS cloud provider. Runtime specifies the Node.js version, right? Region, which region your service is going to be deployed. Environment, it defines the environment variable accessed in the code. So this particular environment variable we will be using in our code somewhere, okay, in the Node.js function, in the Lambda function, so for inside handler.js. So we'll see in a moment that this environment variable will automatically be injected. So this is the name of the environment variable. It sets the name S3 bucket dynamically, okay, based on the service name that you provide. So this is the way you are giving the service name. So it is self, and then service name, and then stage. So SLS stage. So whatever stage you are in, and then hyphen bucket it will add. So your service name S3 bucket name will be service name, then stage whatever it is, and then it will add a suffix bucket to that. Then the other piece of the important, which is very important again, the IAM role statements. You won't be able to write to any S3. For example, Lambda is one service, S3 bucket is other service. But one service cannot talk to other service unless you give some roles, right? So if you want to give some roles, so you have to configure your roles here. So this IAM role statements, what it will do, it will grant AWS IAM permissions to the Lambda function. Okay. So if it allow, what does it say? It allow the listed action which you are going to write down below. So for example, action, put object and get object. These are the permissions to interact with S3, right? Resource, it restricts permissions to the specific S3 object created. So this is the resource. So we will be creating a resource. So we have created already this particular bucket. So that's, you see here, I just use the same name for the bucket, right? So whatever in this bucket we will write, we can write to this bucket location, we can get any object from this bucket location. So this is where we have to define resource. I think you got this, right? Resource part. Okay, so coming to the, this is, I think, pretty much all clear. Now we go and write things related to the Lambda function. So um, I will go back here. Yes, it is very, in my future plans, I have some plans to create videos, or you can say demonstration about CDK, which is much easier rather than maintaining the YAML file, which is quite difficult because you see tabs and spaces all matters a lot. Upload file, and there I need to put a tab, and here I need to write handler. As I said, this will be for the first time. I will be writing this all from scratch, but I would suggest, in my future videos, I will be reusing everything that I'm writing in here. so as to save time, right? Events. So event would be HTTP, all right. And then we would have path. Path would be upload, and then method would be post. All right. So what is this? So this, as you know, function defines the serverless function, right? So this will define the serverless function. Upload file, the function name, I mean the Lambda function name. Handler, it points to whichever files. For example, handler dot upload file. So this will be the name. It will point to this. So you must have the something here which will be named like this. And then events specify the events triggering to the function. So HTTP meaning HTTP post endpoint slash upload is the path that you can use, and it will be the post method. Okay. Then you might need to create some additional resources that would be used, resources to be created for your AWS. So that for that we have a different section, and that section is, we will call it like resources. Okay. So sorry, resources, and under resources I put a tab resources, and over here I do S3 bucket. All right. And then I do type would be AWS colon S3 colon bucket. All right. Then I write properties, and there I put a tab bucket name, and there I will write dollar, and I can copy this. All right. So this is my bucket name. Self-service SLA stage. Okay. So what is the importance of these resources? So resources defines the additional AWS resources that you need to create. So S3 bucket, it will create the bucket S3. Type AWS resource type would be S3 colon bucket. Properties specify the bucket name dynamically, and that's what you know. Then we also might need some plugins, okay, to be used. Why? Because sometimes, I mean, we are not using it, but yeah, I will just put one sample so that you know. So right now we will the demo that I will be showing you guys is directly connecting to our AWS account and then pushing everything there. But you can also do, for example, something serverless offline or some plugins like that. So this is also a possibility that you can choose in order to spin up your application only or your local. No need to go and connect. Um, so yeah, so for example, for plugin also it's very easy. You just need to go here, you write plugins, and then you just define whatever plugins you want. For example, let's say you want um, serverless um, offline. So that would be one plugin. I will be taking one separate video to just to explain you how we cannot, you know, we can directly spin up most of the things here to test or for AWS serverless rather than connecting directly to our account. AWS account. So this is all serverless YAML. We will see how it runs, but before that we need to write the Lambda function. So Lambda function, as you know, is always very easy to write in. So what I will do, I will just quickly create const and then bucket name um, is equals to process dot env dot yeah. So I would be using s3 underscore bucket underscore name. That was the bucket that I already created. So as you already saw that my s3 bucket name is this, so I use this name, and this is what I would be referring. And then after that, I think it's very common syntax module dot exports exports dot up, upload file. Okay. And then it will be async, and yeah, so I will get an event inside this, and then I will I can use this event to get whatever I want. So I will put my lambda inside try, and then put here catch, just to catch any error. So error, let's say, and there I will put my all errors, right? So this is the basic structure. Okay, so what is there in the, so I will just decouple everything. So const, what I'm getting in from my run argument. So I will get file name, which I'll be passing in, and then file content, let's say. Okay. And then uh, I'll be taking it everything from, JSON dot parse, because I would be taking it all from body, event body. So this is all what I get from the when I call this API, and then I prepare my params would be params. These params would be for my call to AWS, right? So this is the kind of request payload that I'm preparing in for my AWS S3 bucket. Sorry. So what it consists of, my bucket. So would be bucket name, comma. Then I would need my key, would be my file name, all right, comma. Then I have my body, body. Body would be file content, and then I have my content type, and it would be application slash, if it is coming as an octet stream, so you can say octet stream. Yeah, so it, you can change it as per your requirement. So yeah, for now I just want my file to be as an octet stream when I, so it's just like that. And then yeah, after that what I'll do, I'll just say await um S3. Yeah, so I need S3. So in order to have S3, what you have to do, you have to import S3. Const S3 is equals to new AWS dot S3, and there I just created the S3 object. All right. And AWS is also something which is needed. So I'll be quickly creating an AWS uh, const AWS is equals to require, and there I would need AWS SDK. So though when you run your Lambda function inside AWS infrastructure, it this library is not needed. But when you run your application on your local, this library is definitely needed. So I would suggest you to add this library in your package.json so that it works without any issues. Okay, so S3 I already used S3. So S3 I'm writing put object. Okay, so put object I will write what, I will pass params. Okay, that should do all what I need, and then promise. Yeah, so that's pretty much all which I need to do, and then I also need to return to whoever is calling me some response. So let me prepare some response. Status, stay status status code. Let's make it 200, and then I would say body would be something. Yeah. So JSON I would use, stringify I would use, and then I can say message. And I can say, let's say file uploaded CCESSFULLY successfully. Okay, and I just this. And then in case of an error, what will happen? I will just console the error to console.log, and there I will do not log, console.error error, and I will do error for my console logs. And also in case of this, I will return again, an error object, which is status code, let's say 500. And then my body would be JSON dot stringify. And there again, I will this time write error, and my error will be file upload failed, file upload failed. And yeah, so file upload failed, and then I can say detail another object, and it will be error.mess message. So yeah, that's pretty much all about my Lambda function. So let me quickly explain about Lambda function, which is also very important. So over here on the top that you see is all the minimum dependencies that we need. So AWS SDK, it imports the AWS SDK to interact with AWS services, which is very important thing. S3, this is needed to create an S3 bucket, and this bucket name, already, we're reading it from the environment variable, right? Module.export, this is same skeleton Node.js code wherever you are writing in the code to create a Lambda functions, always like this. There is an event that is represents the incoming HTTP request. You can extract request file content and file name from the body, HTTP request body representing the file to be uploaded. And then this params is nothing but you are creating or configuring the S3 put object request, right? So these are the things which are needed for any S3 to be S3 bucket or object that needs to be created. Content type, this is a MIME type of the file. So for now, I just chosen it octet string. This line is pretty straightforward. It uploads the file to S3 asynchronously, so it's no, something skyrocket, rocket science, something like that. It's very simple. Then over here, we just, kind of sending messages and handling errors. So that's pretty much all what we have to do. Let me open the terminal quickly and then see how. So now we have created serverless.yaml file. We have created handler.js. You already have seen my previous videos how to set up your CLI. Now I'll just run my simple command sudo sls deploy, and then I will pass my password. So you see here there are so many errors, and I need to understand what these errors are. Provided dot region must be equal to one of the following values, US East 1. Okay, so something wrong in the provider. Let me go and check. So yeah, in the provider section, you see I have done, I think, a little, very little small US East -1. Okay. So this region looks good to me. Okay, sorry, this colon is something which is creating trouble. All right, so let me push it again. Sudo sls deploy. Okay, so there are some other problems also. These are warnings. Unrecognized property function. Okay, resources. So I need to fix it before I push, because functions is not function but it is functions. Okay, that I fixed. Resources. So resources resources. I think this is not a problem. And plugins is also not a problem. Then why they are kind of not happy, I just need to understand. Okay, let me put this. Okay, so functions and then method post, I just put a space here. resources, and then plugins, I just put a space here, and then I execute this command. Okay, again there is some problem. I just need to see what's wrong. Functions, upload file handler, events, resources. Okay, so let me just format it. Control S, format document. Okay, so I formatted it. Now let me write sudo sls deploy. Okay, so now it works. I just formatted the file. So as I said, YAML is always going to be, very tricky most of the time, because you don't know if there is some stab missing or not. So don't worry, I will have sooner another playlist created for Cloud CDK to spin up any service that you want from your local. So this is yeah. So in a moment we'll be seeing it how this service is getting created. Okay. Okay. So this service is deployed. You see. Now what we will do, I already have one sample curl which I already created. I will just be replacing the post URL and then try to run this service. So this is my curl object, and I just copy this here, uh, and then paste this here, and then copy this whole curl object. So in the whole curl object, you can see that I am kind of writing in file name, okay, and then content over here. I just push this, and you see file uploaded successfully. So that's how it works. And if you might face sometimes some issue when you run this command, like this curl command on your local. So what you can do, you can just install, for example, there are sometimes errors like AWS SDK. So you can just do npm install AWS SDK, and then you can do -f and save dev. It will install AWS SDK on your machine, on your package.json like this, and then probably your errors will be resolved. Also, I would like to highlight, okay, before I highlight, I would like to show you in real, because whatever API that we hit here, it created an S3 bucket. So this was my AWS console. You see here, I already have this AWS console open, which has nothing over here. But when I refresh this page, you will see that it has created here some buckets. And if you go here, you see this file is already created, and in the file you can also see the content over here, which has been created by the serverless uh, that we have created, right? So and that's pretty much all we know about. So over here, see, this is a test file content. So um, we can also see Lambda function in action. So before our running the code, there was no Lambda function, but now you see here this Lambda function was created, upload file, and this is what we have created. This was the service name, and this was the stage, and this is the name of the file that we have given. I can show you quickly again. Service name, stage, and bucket was added as a suffix. So this is the bucket name. Sorry, this is a Lambda function. So Lambda function is here, which was created. But when it comes to the um, S3 bucket, so S3 bucket is something which you can correlate. So you see here service name, and then stage is dev, and then hyphen bucket, right? So that's what I mean. Lambda function, you saw the S3 bucket, you saw the file content, and now we will see API gateway, because that was important. Upload API that was triggered. So over here you see one API was created, upload post, and that will be triggered anytime when we hit the request. And then we can also watch CloudWatch logs, um, CloudWatch, and this will give us logs for all the requests that we are hitting in. So we'll go logs, log groups, and you see upload file here, right? So these are the streams, and if you click here, you see this was okay. So what I was explaining you before, that all these things here, these are very important. For example, let's say if you are creating a serverless YAML and you forgot this, right, this particular IAM role, once you hit this request, you will face an error like not allowed, something like that, right? So let's say if you forgot environment variable here, so this, once you run the request, your code will be it will be reading environment variable from runtime, and it will not be able to find that. That will give you environment variable error like that. So yeah, that's pretty much all of spinning up one simple Lambda API gateway, via API gateway, and just hitting the S3 bucket, creating the S3 bucket, creating a file over there. from your local machine to AWS account. I make sure that I will also cover this serverless offline, wherein you do not need to deploy anything to your AWS account. Rather, you can do something on your local also, right? So that is why this plugin is very important. We'll cover some of the services. Serverless offline does not give you sort of all kind of services to be played. You can play with, but yeah, some services you can definitely play on your local and do whatever you want in terms of your testing. Okay.